This is Support is Sexy, episode 224, with Susanne Goldstein, producer and director of The Exchange. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here because, you know, it just would not be the same without you. And today, our guest, so great, Susanne Goldstein. Susanne and I actually met through I Fund Women, which is a platform for crowdfunding focused on women, which I love. It's run by Karen Khan, who was also on the podcast. A great platform. But Susanne and I met through there, and when I saw what she was creating with her project, which is a docuseries called The Exchange, I knew I had to not only support her, but also speak to her. And she is just a wealth of information about this documentary, about creating space for people to have conversations, but also about career, making your own luck, creating your own opportunities, and so much more. So in this episode, Susanne talks about how to surround yourself with the best, the value of carrying your own paintbrush and painting your own door of opportunity, how to network by fives. I love that theory. What you should say to a contact when you're really not sure what you're looking for, how you can create your own luck, the importance of following up with people who support you, how to break through the quote-unquote fourth wall, why Susanne believes in setting a theme for your year rather than resolutions, and how to live and work within your sweet spot. Make sure you listen out for that. That really resonated with me. Let me know if it resonates with you. I feel like at this point in my journey, I am within my sweet spot, approaching my sweet spot. It feels good. You know, when you have that feeling like you're doing the right thing, it might not be perfect, but you're doing the right thing. And on this episode, I think you will get the feeling from Susanne that she is in her sweet spot. She is doing the work and creating space for important conversation in her series called The Exchange. Also, I want you to make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com, go to the search box and just type in Susanne, Susanne, so you can make sure to find out how you can also support Susanne's project, The Exchange, which is really, you'll hear more about it in the episode, obviously, but she really was inspired to do this after last year's election in 2016, and she decided to create space for conversation. You know, I'm all about that. I totally get it. All right, so I know you're going to love this episode. Without further ado, Susanne Goldstein. So Susanne, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Elayne. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Wow, that's such a good question. I think I first fell in love with it when I organized a road race in my school when I was in high school. And I started from a blank piece of paper and decided that I want to try to raise money for something, and I just had to figure out how to do it. I didn't know it was entrepreneurship at the time, but just figuring out how to build something out of nothing was just the most inspiring thing that I could ever imagine, and it was incredibly in my blood from that moment on.
Is it something that you saw in your life at that time, or just something that came to you as you said, this is something I want to do, I have to figure it out?
You know, it's funny. There's two things I want to say to this. One, that when I was in fifth grade, I remember that we in spelling class had to spell the word entrepreneurship. And I remember like the pentameter of it. I would like ENTREPRENEUR. That was like entrepreneur. And I never really knew what the word meant, but I loved spelling it. It was this really strange thing. And I also didn't know that my dad really was an entrepreneur, but for me, he was just a dad who ran a company. And I didn't know what that meant. So I think I was always around people in business. And I wanted to be in the arts, but I think I had this influence of business always around me.
I see. Now, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Boston?
I grew up outside of Boston. Yeah, one of the suburbs in the W's.
What was a young Susanne like growing up?
I'll tell you the very first story that really, I think, defined me. My friend Kimmy, when I was growing up, had a brook behind her house. And in the spring, when we were 5, I felt really bad for the water because it was being blocked from flowing freely in the brook because there were all kinds of twigs and leaves and pine needles. And I felt bad for the water. And so I made Kimmy come out every day during the spring and clear the brook with me. And our little tiny fingers would turn blue. And I think that was like the beginning of me being in a life of service. It's like I like to help things flow. I like to help people get to the next rung on the ladder, to a better place, to get a company to, be successful, people to be successful. It's just, I think, who I am. It's baked in.
And it sounds like you're compassionate too.
I think that's part of it. I think it's having the ability to stand in someone else's shoes, or at least do your best that you can to stand in someone else's shoes and try to experience the world from their point of view, and then see what you can do to grow from that experience and also potentially help from that experience.
Who would you say were some of your greatest influences growing up?
I would say my biggest influence growing up was Barbra Streisand. I watched her and I thought, this is a woman who is in charge, and she directs and she produces and she sings and she performs, and she just had all of this stuff that was always around her, and she was making the world in the shape that she wanted, and she didn't let anybody stop her. And I think there were a bunch of women like that in music and in a couple of other industries, I think, that were doing exceptional things, but I didn't really have female role models growing up. I had more male role models growing up. And so it was having her sort of have that vision that was different from the world around me. I think that was incredible.
And the fact, too, that she didn't let people change her or make her feel like she had to change herself.
Nope. In fact, she took away an A out of her name so that she could be unique.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Barbra.
Right.
No middle A in the back end.
I love it. That's fantastic. Now, you said you were surrounded mostly, or you had your greatest influences at that time were men. And is that because you were just surrounded by men growing up in your life, your dad and other people?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was always there, but my mom is a big thinker. I grew up in a very Socratic household. So when anything was going on in life, you were asked 1,000 questions about it to try to come up with the answer. And it was really the method of learning that I was taught. And then, when I wanted to go to college, I wanted to be in the arts, and my parents really wanted me to be an engineer. And so I went to engineering school and was one of 11 women in a huge class of mechanical engineers at Cornell. And, I was just surrounded by a lot of men, for most of my formative years, and didn't really know the power of female friendships that could also move into business until later in life.
Now, when you were in school for engineering, even though, as you said, you were interested in the arts, did you think that you would go ahead and become an engineer, or were the arts still a very important part of your life?
Well, it was funny because in my junior year of my engineering program, I had taken so many electives in the arts college that I was just 4 classes away from actually getting a Bachelor of Arts degree as well. So I decided to actually pursue that. And as part of my pursuing of that Bachelor of Arts, I made arrangements with my university that I could go away to London. And as part of pursuing this independent major in arts and communication and film, that I was going to go and find myself a job in the theater in London. And I did. I actually got a job at the National Theatre of Great Britain. And I got it, it's kind of a funny story, by sitting in the lobby for 8 straight days until someone would talk to me, which I, by the way, will not recommend anybody do now because you'll get arrested. But back then, I made friends with all the people at the lobby desk and told them that I wanted to work there and was anybody who could talk to me. And it turns out when they finally found someone to talk to me, they needed someone who knew engineering, drawing, drafting, and they knew someone who knew theater to be their assistant production manager in one of their 3 stages. And so by luck of, great circumstance and I think pursuing being there, my first real job was at the National Theatre of Great Britain, and it really brought together engineering and arts in this perfect way.
Now, that's a great story. One of the things
Thank
I
you.
wanted to ask you, though, is that you, as you mentioned, you went and sat in that lobby for 8 days. What was it about that particular theater company that made you say, this is where I'm going to go and sit here no matter what, as opposed to, say, other places? Was it something about it or something about you that made you say, this is the place I'm supposed to be?
It's funny. I'm going to use words now from the job that I currently have, which is I'm CEO of the Verna&nbsp company, and we're a diversity and inclusion consulting firm. And I will tell you that my bias back then and how I was brought up was about the word "the best." And the National Theater is the best theater in the world. It is, funded by the British government. They do extraordinary experimental theater as well as social justice theater, as well as, stuff that really is going to push people's thinking. And I thought, I can go to London and I could get a job sweeping a stage at a fringe theater, like an off-Broadway house, or I can really go for the gusto and try to do what I really wanted, which was to work at a place where I thought I was going to be surrounded by the best people in the world who did theater.
Is that something that you carried on, I should say, into other positions that you've taken across the years? Positions and opportunities.
I would say that my career path, which has been quite a few lily pads and jumps here and there, I started, as we said, in theater, and then I got into the film industry in London, and then I moved to LA and was in the film industry there, and then moved to Silicon Valley and became an early .com pioneer, and then moved to Boston and did a lot of work in the world of social entrepreneurship, and now I run a diversity and inclusion company. And I would say in all of that path, the common theme is that I like to do what I call carry a bucket of paint and a paintbrush with me. And every time I see something I want to try or do, or someone I want to meet, I take out that imaginary bucket of paint and a paintbrush and I paint a doorway, and I open that doorway and I create an opportunity for something lucky to happen. And the reason I use that metaphor, and I actually wrote about it in a book of the similar title, is that I feel like a lot of us are afraid to step through that door and try something unknown and pursue something that is typically not something that women, do. If women are aggressive, they're, called all kinds of names. If men are aggressive, they're called powerful. And so what I like to try to do is encourage other women to step through that doorway by using this metaphor of opening a door, because I think women in general, they don't want to step on other people. And so the idea, if you're creating a brand new door, you're not stepping on anyone because no one has that same door as you. And so I think that for me, I've used that technique without even knowing that's what I was doing for most of my life. And every time I've decided to move to a new career, or, it's always been an evolution for me. And those things, I think, have really helped me be pretty fearless in what I've tried to do.
Excellent. And that book is Carry Your Own Paintbrush, How to Be the Artistic Director of Your Own Career.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love it. And I was going to ask you about that, this idea of not only having the courage, as you said, to step through the door, but I think to paint the door in the first place. In other words, sort of the courage to break the rules or not do what everyone else, like Barbra Streisand, what everyone else says you're supposed to do. How did that become an important part of your journey, do you think? Just having the courage to say, no, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to sit here for 8 days until someone talks to me, or I'm going to, do all these other things. I know you have a great story, too, about your entree into Hollywood, for example.
I would say, as a quick answer to your question, I think there's a Yiddish word called chutzpah, which is just this idea that you're daring and that it doesn't really have an English translation, quite frankly, but it's about having the guts to try stuff. And I think I was born with a fair amount of it. And, chutzpah has gotten me very far. I would also say that I never wanted to not be who I thought I had the capability of being, or what I had the capability of doing. I didn't want things to stop me. And so you alluded to the story of how I broke into Hollywood. I developed a technique after the fact that I realized I had done, but the way I broke into Hollywood was essentially using a technique I call networking by fives. Mm-hmm. And the whole concept of networking by fives is that you get people to invest in you by getting to know them and asking to them questions about themselves. And once they like you because they've been talking about themselves for a while and that makes them feel good, you then, when they turn the conversation to you, say, oh, this is what I'm looking for. And, you get them to invest in you. And what happens when they invest in you is that they want to help you. And so what happened when I got to Hollywood is I met one person who was my entree person, and I got to know her, and she got to like me. And when we decided that working together wasn't going to be the right relationship, she said, why don't we be friends? And I said, that's a great idea, because we were peers. And I thought it's going to be a greater position for me to be peers with her than to be working for her. And so in that newfound place, I said, would you mind introducing me to 5 people that that who might be willing to talk to me? And she said, sure. And this was pre-internet. So she wrote it all down and gave me phone numbers. And I called each one of them, and I met each one of them, and I asked them about themselves. And at a certain point in the conversation, it would turn to me, and they'd say, so you're here in Hollywood. What are you interested in doing? And I'd end up giving them a couple copies of my resume and asking them to share it. And by the way, do you have 5 people who might be willing to talk to me? And so by the time I had been in Hollywood for 6 weeks, I had met 54 people. And when a job opening happened at Disney Studios to work on a project as a director's assistant, which is the job that I wanted, my resume ended up in the pile 11 times. Mm-hmm. And so it's just one of those crazy stories of persistence and kindness and going for what you want.
I think, too, thank you for sharing that story. And I think, too, the idea of being prepared with knowing, at least at that time, what you want, it sounds like was important, because you were able to answer. Sometimes people say, oh, so what are you looking for? How can I help you? And I know I've been in that position where I may ask someone that, and they're sort of wishy-washy. They don't know. They haven't decided. But in your case, when you sat down with that person, it sounded like you at least had an idea, even if not the exact position of what you wanted to do.
I did. I knew that I wanted to be on set. I had had a job in London before I moved to LA, where I was a director's assistant to John Schlesinger, who won the Academy Award for Midnight Cowboy. And I knew that directing is what I wanted to do. And yet, I also didn't know what the jobs were in LA, quite frankly. When I got there, I didn't know what development people did. I didn't know what creatives were versus production executives. I didn't know anything. So when I met people, I really was going for an informational interview, saying, so-and-so suggested I come talk to you. I'd love to hear what you do for a living. And in those cases where you really don't know and you really are exploring, you can say to someone, when I'm figuring it out, and I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind if I check it back in with you once I know a little bit more about the direction I want to go. But in the case, I did know what I wanted to do. And I did say to people, listen, I'm open to a lot of different possibilities, but my dream job would be to be a director's assistant on a film. And that's what I ended up getting.
And then your resume ends up in the pile 11 times.
Exactly. Kind of crazy.
Kind of crazy, but it makes sense. Now, tell us about this other sort of theory that I know you have spoken on before, this idea of being prepared for, so to speak, luck when something comes your way, and creating almost, I don't know if these would be your words, but for me, it seemed like creating your own luck with the paintbrush. How do we do that more often?
That's such a good question. So Oprah says that luck is opportunity meeting hard work. And I think that those are exactly the things. So, I love that you clearly have done some research about me before getting on this call. And I think that knowing who you're going to meet and knowing about their organization and knowing how that organization works and or the person you're going to meet, where they've been, it makes you engaged. It makes you engaging. And what happens as a result of that is people fall in love with you. It's the funniest thing. Chris Matthews in his book Hardball years ago, he wrote that this isn't about I scratch your back and hope you'll scratch mine. That's the common theory, is that, I'm just going to go do something nice for that person and hopefully they'll do something nice back for me. He actually flipped the model completely, and he said, if you get people to do something for you, they will invest in you. So instead of saying, "Oh, what can I do to help you?" and hope that someone's going to help you back. Instead, you say, "Hey, listen, I could use some help with X. Would you mind introducing me to so and so?" And once they've introduced you to so and so, if you do what you need to do afterwards, which is follow up with them and thank them and keep them in the loop and tell them how the conversation went, they become even more invested in you and they want to find out what happens. They want to see the course of events play out. And I think what happens in luck, and most people you ask will say, "Listen, I was just lucky." But really, it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of being open to who you're meeting and how that might evolve into the next thing.
I think, too, just to your point, that's a great concept of just sort of flipping this idea of being the person who is not afraid to ask for support, which is what we're all about here, to ask for support and not just what can I give, although that's important, but not being afraid to say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. And I think also to your point, most people enjoy helping people, especially if they can see the result of that help, right? So
exactly.
Keeping people informed of, hey, I had the conversation. This is how it went. I even say, I'm going to follow up with them at this point. I'll let you know what happens.
Right. And, it's interesting. I think that after this career that I've had, I've actually gone back to the film world, and it happened as a result of the election in November of 2016 and Donald Trump winning. And I woke up the next day feeling like, oh my God, I need to do something about this. And, I can tell you more about that if you're interested, but let me just say that I met someone recently who's kind of a big hitter, and I was seated next to this person at an event. And we got talking, and I was telling them about my project, The Exchange, and they said, you really should meet so-and-so. And this so-and-so is a big Hollywood TV producer who has produced a bunch of documentary series, which is what I'm looking to do with my project. And they made a connection through Facebook for the two of us. And we talked for 2 hours and 2 different sessions last week with him just advising me because he had given me time of day because he was introduced because someone I met at a table at an event. And what's so amazing is it's about parlaying those into more momentum and also making sure, as you mentioned, that you're reaching back. So I reached back to this person I sat next to at the table and I said, hey, I wanted to thank you. We had 2 great conversations. He's offered to, kind of be an advisor as I move through this project. And, with your permission, I would love you to keep you updated on how we're doing. And, got a note back saying, I would love that.
Right.
And all of a sudden I have a new fan in helping me get places. And, that's, I think, what it is. It's about building momentum through networks and people.
Absolutely. Now tell us more about The Exchange, since you mentioned that, and I definitely want to talk about it. I know you are a passionate storyteller, a great storyteller, as we've seen in this episode too.
Thank you.
But I know that is something you are passionate about too, telling the story and really getting to the core of different issues. And as you said, the election was something that really reignited that passion in you. So tell us about The Exchange and how it is coming about, what it's about, and how it's developing.
No, thank you. So the day after the election, I woke up and I called my business partner, who is an African-American woman, and we run a diversity and inclusion consulting firm together. And I said, there's a whole group of people in this country I don't know. And in order for me to really run this company and know what's going on in the world, I need to know the people in rural America who voted for Donald Trump, because I don't know them. And so I said to her, I need to go visit red states. And so I originally launched my project. It was called Blue Girl in a Red State. And it was a listening tour to really understand what's going on in the world, in our country, that with groups of people that I don't know. I've always lived in, big cities, fairly liberal, and had a very different perspective. And it's not that my world is closed. It's that I don't know people that I could add to my portfolio of people that I have. And so I decided to go on I Fund Women and raise some money, and I hired a film crew. We went down to a place called Lawrence County, Alabama, in the northwest part of the state. And the idea was we were going to go there, shoot a pilot for this project, and then we were going to go to other states. And what happened is, as we got to know this county, we kind of fell in love with it. And we realized that this is an amazing place where there are really good people who are hardworking and kind. And in the county, in 2013, their big manufacturer, International Paper, decided to close doors. And they did not give anybody any warning. And that day, 1,100 people lost their jobs, and another 1,600 people who were sort of ancillary workers to the paper mill lost their jobs as well. And so overnight, with no warning, about 35% of the people in the county who were working adults lost their work. And the county was decimated. And so I shot a lot of footage, meeting people, meeting interesting characters, having incredible discussions, having a lot of people that were really not happy that I was there because they were convinced I was a spy from CNN who was going to make a gotcha movie about them. And I had to do a lot of public diplomacy to get people interested in what we were doing and why we were doing it. And I got home, and different from feature films that I made early in my career, where you write a script and you go shoot the script. This was a situation where it's documentary. You go shoot what you find, and then you make up the script afterwards. And so I was sitting and working and trying to figure out how I was going to tell this story, and I started releasing little vignettes of people that we had met, and sort of to just stir up some interest and get some feedback. And in the middle of doing that, it occurred to me that I, who have been a problem solver, and I told you the story about the brook and trying to let the water flow, that I was not using my skills of, helping build things to solve problems to really help the people in this county. And so I decided to change the orientation of my project from this idea of Blue Girl in a Red State to this project called The Exchange. And basically it's this. It's kind of Extreme Home Makeover meets A Social Experiment meets The Apprentice. And so what that all means is that I'm building a team of people in Boston, Massachusetts, where I live, and we are going to be a group of people that are going to go to Lawrence County, Alabama, and help them with an issue that they have. And in exchange, they are going to have a group of people who are going to come to Boston and help us with an issue that we have. And if you're interested, I'll tell you more about what those issues are.
Yes. What are those issues? I'm so intrigued. This is fantastic. I had no idea that's what all of it was. I love hearing about this.
Oh, yeah.
It's
so
brilliant.
Basically, thank you. It's exciting. And so what's happening is in Lawrence County, they really don't have people who can help them with a business plan and a marketing plan for the county so that they can go out to manufacturers who are looking to make new, facilities and attract business to come to the county. And they would really have to do a significant issue about retraining absolutely everyone and finding a different way for them to participate in the 21st century economy. And this is a wonderful group of people who, if your great-grandfather was a welder, then your grandfather was a welder, then your dad was a welder, and you're a welder, right? And so that's basically how it goes there. There's not a lot of what we call entrepreneurship, and it's just not part of their way of thinking in life, and that's not a bad thing. It's just how their lives go, and it's beautiful and wonderful, and they're kind and hospitable and amazing, but they are lacking the ability to participate in a 21st century economy. So we're going to send a team down there, and we're going to build a program called Lawrence County is Open for Business, and we're going to try to attract companies to come into the county so that they can have jobs. So that's the first half. And the second half of the exchange is it's something motivated by something that happened when I moved to Boston 14 years ago. I really like Boston, but it's a very, very difficult city to get to know. There is a Brahmin arrogance that happens from having the best schools in the world, having the best hospitals in the world, that permeates the city. And a lot of people have been here their whole lives. And so there's a fourth wall that most people do not want to break. Fourth wall is a theater expression for not the proscenium arch, the three parts of the wall that make the theater, but when a character actually steps out and talks to the audience, they're breaking the fourth wall of that theater. And in Boston, it's very hard to actually just start a new conversation. A lot of people have been here their whole lives. They're still friends with the kids they went to high school with and who are now adults with their own kids. And so when I first moved here, I would go out walking on the river, and I would say good morning to people, and literally, Elayne, they would look at me like I was an axe murderer.
Right. Like, who are you? What do you want from me?
Exactly. I don't have my wallet on me. And I would just be like, look, I'm just saying hi. And I came from California where everybody says hi to everybody, and it's genuine. It's just a different way of working in the world, right? So it was pretty exciting to be able to think about that idea when I started thinking about the exchange, because I would love for the hospitable, kind, generous people of Lawrence County to be able to come to Boston and help infuse a little bit of that here. And so we're doing a campaign in Boston called Smile Boston. And it's going to be an on-the-ground, person-to-person, mano-a-mano, as well as social media campaign to just try to elevate the eye contact and elevate the friendliness of the city.
I love that. Now, will the people from Alabama be a part of that project when you're doing the exchange? Will they be working on how to make the Smile Boston project bigger and continue to grow?
Yeah, so Smile Boston hasn't started yet. They're going to start it.
The
people from Lawrence County, they will be the entrepreneurs who build Smile Boston. And then the people from Boston will be the entrepreneurs who are going to build Lawrence County's Open for Business.
So it's really a cultural exchange, a business exchange. It's bigger than I thought when I first read it. When you mentioned the change of the evolution, I should say, of the project, I thought the exchange was just the conversation, but it's so much bigger.
Oh, so much bigger. We're going to actually go do the work. We're going to go bring teams to each other's areas. We're going to have people house with other people and get to live in someone's home and get to know what it's like to live in a home. I mean, most of the people that I've met in Alabama have never been out of the state. And I'm going to be getting them on an airplane for the first time and bringing them here. And then I'm going to be bringing Boston folks who live in the lap of luxury and show them what it's like to live in a different part of the world and why they are a blue county that turned red because of a jobs issue.
Right, and capturing that all for all of us to see too.
Exactly.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, what would you say your vision is overall for the impact that you hope the exchange will make?
Oh, well, I am a big, big dreamer.
I know.
So listen, if we can launch this program and we can make a city-rural county pair that can really influence each other's outcomes and change our circumstances and make friends across and bridge the differences, I think we have an opportunity to start healing the divide in our country. In a bigger sense, if then, Chicago decided to adopt a town in Missouri, or, New York City decided to do an exchange with a place in Texas. The whole concept here is that we all have such huge biases in our lives. And the reason you have biases is because we make up stories about people we don't know. That's what my business partner, Verna says all the time. And, that's true. And so I talk to people in Boston who are like, well, how could they possibly vote for Donald Trump? And then you talk to people in Lawrence County who were like, those liberals, they can't, they would vote for Hillary Clinton. Are they crazy? She's blah, 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 right? So, there's such extremes that now there are members of families who don't even talk to each other.
Right.
There are friendships. There are people defriending each other on Facebook or Instagram or wherever because they have such a huge difference about what's going on in this world. And the only way to heal this is person to person. We have to start getting to know each other. It's the only way we're going to move forward. And I don't believe that any government is going to do this. I don't believe that a government can do this. I think this is the only way to make America great again is if Americans help Americans.
Right. And I think government in some ways, my own political view, not thrives on us being divided, but there's some investment in the country being divided. So if we take it on ourselves, as you're doing, and create programs and different kind of opportunities just to have literally the exchange of ideas and opinions, but then also cultural exchange, I think it's such a great way to get us started down that path.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I'm just sitting here like, that's so great. I love it.
It's big. I mean, I think that's the hardest part for me. It's big. I need interns. I need volunteers. I need people who are interested. I'm out there talking every day. And, like a lot of us who are doing stuff, this is my side hustle, right? Mm-hmm. My real job is running a company. And then that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And we do amazing work. And I'm very proud of what we do. Mm-hmm. And I'm very lucky that I have a business partner who supports this vision of mine. But this is what we have the opportunity to do if we want to change the world.
One of the great quotes I saw from you or heard from you was passion gets you out of bed in the morning, interests are the things that captivate you, and skills are the things you grow along the way. So I wanted to ask you, would you say that right now the exchange is really the passion that gets you out of the bed in the morning?
Here's what I would say. I like and believe that every person should live their life at their sweet spot. So what you just quoted was from a Venn diagram I have in my book. And it's 3 circles, and there's one for passions, one for interests, and one for skills. And right in the middle where they all intersect, if you're doing the passion that makes it, the interest that makes it, and the skills that make it, that little sweet spot is where you can find what I call a doingness. And if you can do that thing, so in this case, this is helping make the world a better place. That's my passion, right? My interest in this case is the divide in our country. And my skills are, right now, I'm using a lot of them. It's filmmaking, it's producing, it's organizing, it's getting people to build a momentum around something. Like, I'm using a lot of skills to do this. And so every day, if you can work at the place, what I call your sweet spot, I think life can be amazing. And, when you feel like you're out of sync with your life, when you feel like you're just blah, you feel like, things aren't going the way you want them to go, I believe it's because you're no longer working in your sweet spot.
And it's so interesting, too, that this the exchange is also, it seems like it's a reflection of the story you shared with us earlier about this idea of flow, you being very committed to flow and empathizing with people, being compassionate and that kind of thing. So it sounds like you are in sync right now.
It's funny, I do a thing every year I call themes, right? So I don't believe in New Year's resolutions because I believe people fail at them. But what I do believe is setting a theme, and it's something about yourself that you want to change in your life or in the world. And it's not about losing 10 pounds. It's not about, having more fun. It's about something that you really want to grow about. And I set my first theme in 1992, New Year's of 1992, when I was working in Hollywood, and everything in Hollywood is very, very dramatic. Like, it's like, this is the best and this is the worst, and it's all drama. And I decided that being there for that amount of time, was starting to suck into the drama. And I didn't want to. So I made a theme for myself to only be dramatic when drama was necessary. And so I was really bad at it for the first 2 or 3 months of the year. I didn't even notice when I was reacting to something. But when you give yourself this microsecond to respond versus react, all of a sudden you're making choices in your life instead of just responding to stuff. And so my theme, which was so fascinating in the beginning of the year, I was such a failure at, by August or September, I was noticing that when someone says something that I would normally react to, I would take a pause and I would say, how do I want to choose to respond to this? And it was fascinating. So my theme for 2017 was to live in my sweet spot. And it has been working out really nicely for me.
It sounds like it. Now, one of the things that you mentioned earlier, I want to go back to make sure we don't miss, is that you need interns and other kinds of support for the project. So what are the ways that people can get involved?
Well, the first one is we're going to be launching a new I Fund Women campaign very soon, announcing the transition and evolution of the project. And we're looking to raise another $40,000 to $50,000. And what we're going to do with that money is twofold. We're going to go and make sure we have our team set in both Boston and Lawrence County. And we're going to do a little bit of filming of them separately. And then we're going to cut together a sizzle reel to go to Netflix and Amazon Studios and other places that we think might actually pick this up for production and distribution. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that money, we're going to produce that sizzle reel, shoot a little bit more, and then we're going to use the money to market and to go visiting studios that we need to. And the good news is that I'm going to start tapping my Hollywood network soon, and hopefully those meetings will come. I can't say they're going to be easy, but hopefully they will flow. That is what I'm hoping for.
I have a feeling you're going to make it happen. I don't doubt you one bit. Not one bit.
Oh, you're kind. Thank you.
And what about people who might be interested, who are listening, who might be interested in interning or offering their support in another way? Is there a website up yet, or you'll tell us about it later?
I think the best thing to do is go to Facebook. And my public page for this project is right now called Follow Susanne, FOLLOW SUSANNE. And you can always send me a message if you like the page. We are going to be having, we do have an email address. It's info at exchangenation.tv.
Okay.
And you can see in the name of our URL, Exchange Nation, we're hoping that this becomes bigger than just one exchange.
I love that. Have the vision in the URL. You got to have that.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
And for people, I'll make sure I have links to everything. And people who go to your page also, they'll be able to see. I know you have some clips from the things that you have filmed so far, which are very powerful.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you had a chance to look at them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think that, if I could find people who wanted to help with anything from organizing and project management to casting to outreach phone calls, or to help me network to help build the teams, I will tell you that because of the challenge that Boston has of trying on things that are maybe different and new, and letting go maybe of some of we're the best city in the world, I have to break through some of that in order to get people to be on the team. And so if you know people who are in the Boston area who might be wonderful contributors to this, we want people who are having a challenge with the other side and really having a hard time understanding why people voted for Trump and what's going to happen, but are interested in being part of a solution. Those are the kind of people we're interested for our team.
Excellent. Just a couple more questions for you. What would you say that entrepreneurship and just your journey overall, because it's been so compelling, what would you say it's taught you about yourself as a woman?
God, that's such a great question. I'm going to say two things about this. One, I don't want to say really late in life, but it took me until my 20s to realize how much women can help women. And I think you end up finding that out sometimes through the opposite, which is that there are many women who will push other women down. And the reason they do that is because there's not a lot of room at the top. And they scrambled so hard to get there, they don't want another woman toppling them, so they get the position at the top. And I think that happens because structurally, the systems in our country were set up to advantage certain groups of people over other groups of people. So I would say first and foremost, embracing my powerful women friends who are also doing extraordinary things in the world has been the biggest lesson for me. Because I came out of a male-dominated engineering program. I worked in technology for 20 years. And yet it's the women who I have found that when you really connect can send you incredible places. So that's one thing I will say for that. And on a personal level, there is nothing that women cannot do. And I am tired of the stories that women have been told for years and years about what they should and shouldn't do and how they should and shouldn't behave. I think if people want to be brash, if people want to be open, if people want to be direct, I know a lot of women who are powerful and they're like, look, I'm an acquired taste. And you know what? They're not an acquired taste. They're just acquired taste because they're female acting in a way that they're going to get exactly what they want in life. And I don't think there's any reason that we should not have exactly what we want in life.
Amen. I'm with you.
Amen.
Amen. So in closing, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
What would I say to them?
What would you say to that person?
Wow. Am I allowed to say it's my parents?
Yes, of course.
Because that's two people?
That's okay.
So, my parents, they pushed us very hard. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it. And they made me go into engineering school, and I was not happy about it. And I got to say that no matter what crazy thing I have tried, my parents have always been there trying to understand what I'm doing. When I started working on the internet, when the web first came out in 1994, and there was no one had any idea what the web was. And my parents were trying to explain it to friends when they were saying, and our daughter's doing this thing, right? They've always been willing and wanting to evolve with me. And I am so grateful that they have big minds and that I've gone on an extremely non-traditional path. And they've never said to me, why don't you just go get a job? Why don't you just, give up this thing? When I was younger, they did. When they were younger, they said, you can always do that arts thing as a hobby. But once we got through that battle, which was before I went to college, when I was graduating college, ever since then, they have been extraordinary. So I guess the thing I want to say to them is thank you for inspiring me, for allowing me to fly to crazy heights and sometimes be Icarus with my wings a little too close to the sun. But, it's knowing that I have their support and backing that makes me willing to just fly high.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Now tell us, I know you said you gave us some idea of how we can support you, but is there anything else you want people to know? I'll make sure I have links to everything, but is there anything you want us to know of other ways to support you in the project? Yeah, watch it. Watch our films. I'm going to go, once we set up our YouTube channel, I'll make sure you know it. And, the more views, the more social media stir we get, the easier it's going to be for me to go to Netflix and say, hey, look, we've got 100,000 viewers. We've got 1 million viewers. They're going to say, oh, this already has an audience built into it. We should get behind this project. So I would say that as we're starting to release stuff, giving us money automatically puts you on our list of people that we're communicating with. But if you want to be on our update list, you can just go to follow Susanne on Facebook and, send me a note and I'll add you to our list. But anytime we post something, you can feel free to share it with the universe. And the more we get people to, really thumbs up and support us, the easier this project's going to be down the road. Excellent. And you are at Follow Susanne on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat as well. Right?
Exactly. And so the only thing to remember is that there's 2 S's, S-U-S-A-N-N-E. Most people spell Suzanne with a Z in the middle. So it's Follow Susanne with an S.
Excellent. Susanne, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time and your wisdom and the project. I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Me too, Elayne. And I want to say I love what you're doing. I love your I Fund Women campaign. And I'm happy to not only be on your show, but be a supporter.
Thank you so much for your support. Now, last, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
What I would say is this. Figure out who you want to be in the world and go be that.
There you go. Susanne, thank you so much. Hold on just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Susanne. Again, go to supportissexypodcast.com. Go to the search box and just type in Susanne, Susanne. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources, the books, links to the exchange so you can find out more information about how to support her there and to support this fantastic and what I think is going to be a powerful project. Supportissexypodcast.com and search Susanne. Also, wherever you're listening, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. I so appreciate you all being here, but I want to make sure that you don't miss an episode. So please, wherever you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Google Play or SoundCloud, make sure that you subscribe. And if you love the podcast, please make sure to leave a review. It really helps the show. Leave a review. Let me know what you think. Of course, I'd love a 5-star review, but any feedback is always appreciated. All right, so thank you all so much again for listening and for being here. And until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.